putting out a tweet.
We're
live.
Yes.
Hey, we're live. Hey. All right, cool. Well, apologies to those of you, even though we never really were live, so it's not like we cut you off or anything like that, but we've been monkeying around here for about 15, 20 minutes trying to get on air, and so here we are. Just 1 second, and then we will dive right in. All right. We are here. We are live. I am Jake Senholz for Flurry Sports. With me is Coach Schroeder at Schroeder Coach and Henry at Hank Time Sports. And I did a whole spiel on the stream that did not work, and I'll save it. Pretty much all I said was, hey, it should be an interesting game here tonight. Between the Packers and the 49ers, and if you really want to show off your skills, show off your knowledge, you can do so over at monkeyknifefight.com. Tonight's going to be a tough game to predict all around, so head on over to monkeyknifefight.com. Use promo code Flurry. You're going to get $5 free just for signing up, and a 100% deposit match up to $50. You can use that $5 free to really, like I said, show your skills, show your knowledge, get involved in a couple different contests tonight, pick some props, and try and win some money, as this one's going to be played without a ton of offensive talent on both sides of the ball. Both defenses a little bit banged up as well, more so probably San Francisco than Green Bay's. But hey, Thursday Night Football is always strange anyways, right? So let's add just some extra wackiness to it and enjoy the NFL, at least being here for us. I know a lot of people, fantasy owners and fans alike, probably would have liked to see this game pushed to Sunday or Monday, so they didn't have to scramble around with their lineup so much, or they just would have been able to watch a better game with more talent. But hey, it's Thursday Night Football, so enjoy it to the best of your abilities. So with that, we are running a little bit behind here. Started exactly on time for our normal stream, but me being a Packers fan, and I believe Coach, you're a Packers fan as well. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, so both of us are wanting to wrap up the stream before kickoff here so we can take in the entirety of that game. So with that, let's just dive right in. Of course, it is Thursday night, which means it is our Stardom Sit-'em show. And if you want to follow along with us, head on over to flurrysports.org, bring up Coach's article, and you can just follow along with us right there. And Zach is saying my mic is still bad. So I'm going to try something else here. Again, just a crazy amount of technical difficulties here. I am going to try and use my computer mic instead of my regular mic. So hold on 1 second here. I'm going to unplug. Can you guys hear me? How is the audio? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Sound good.
All right. Well, I'm going to see if that made a difference. On the streams end, let me ask Zach here. And if not, we're just going to have to push through, and I don't know, maybe I need a new mic or a new cord. I'm not quite sure. Anyhow, head on over to flurrysports.org and follow along with us. We are talking quarterbacks right off the bat here. And the first quarterback that Coach has listed is somebody who I know Henry traded for a few weeks back, and somebody that everybody had real high hopes for after we saw what he was able to do the first couple weeks of the season, is Cam Newton. The Patriots offense has struggled mightily over the past about 3 games now since Cam Newton has come back from COVID, but they've got their backs against the wall. They lost a big contest against the Bills last weekend, even though it was a close game, and now they get to face the Jets. So maybe this is a get-right game. Maybe this is just a clear-their-minds kind of game. Either way, I'm big on the Patriots this week. They got to have a good week here coming up at some point, and no opportunity better than when you're facing the Jets. So, Coach, you've got Cam Newton starting this week. Is there more to it than just the fact that they're playing against the Jets? You see something in this Patriots offense, or did you see a spark at all last week that prompted you to say Cam Newton deserves a start this week, or what is it about this matchup you like so much?
Yeah, well, first off, it's the Jets, so they're giving up 21.4 fantasy points a game to opposing quarterbacks. With Cam, you're always going to get a nice floor with his rushing, so he should be able to get at least 40 yards on the ground and add perhaps a touchdown on the ground as well. But he's been a QB1 in 4 out of 6 games this year that he's played. He missed 1 week due to COVID, but then he's had a couple of duds in there as well. But this is a great get-right spot. I actually have a little spoiler alert here. I have 2 Patriots in the article this week. After last week, I believe we were talking a little bit about not really wanting to start anyone on the Patriots, and against the Jets, it's a great matchup. Or excuse me, not really wanting to start anyone on the Patriots last week, but great matchup against the Jets here, and I think that Cam will at least put up 20. He'll be a QB1 this week for you.
And Henry, of course, these are your Jets that the Patriots are playing. Give us your insight here as a Jets fan. Do you think Cam Newton's going to tear it up against you guys this weekend?
Well, I think we saw a lot of what the Patriots want to do offensively last week, right? When they ran all over the Buffalo Bills. Damian Harris, a big role in that game. And quite frankly, the backfield here is the strength of New England's offense from both a talent perspective and a fantasy perspective going forward, when you can mix in guys like James White and Rex Burkhead along, just pretty much attack the Jets in the same similar manner here, pounding the rock. The Jets defensively, not great overall numbers, but there is some talent in the secondary. And you look at guys like Brian Poole and Marcus May, the safety, Pierre Desir, another cornerback there. So I don't know how much Cam Newton is going to be throwing the ball, but it is the Jets, and I think New England is in for a solid game. I would say Cam Newton, along with Damian Harris, the running back there, they both are in for a fine matchup. I'll be starting Newton myself this week, so you can take it from someone who is in the boat firsthand, I guess.
It is Julian Edelman back this week. I don't know that.
He's on IR.
Oh, he is. Okay.
So. Yeah, if you do need a depth receiver, I don't want to jump too far ahead here knowing we're on quarterbacks, but a depth receiver that I have added in multiple leagues this week is Jacoby Myers, because there's been a clear rapport there between he and Newton. And, he can get it done. He's gotten it done before, so that would be a guy I'd look to add in deeper leagues.
And as it seems like my mic problems just aren't fixed still, which I don't understand. I did a mini stream on Monday, just about a minute's worth of talking during halftime, and everything sounded perfect. But Henry, when I was on with you and Tanner, I sounded like a robot, and apparently the same thing happening tonight. So I am going to do minimal talking here as the host, and I'll probably just leave it mostly to you guys, as long as that's cool with everybody. So I will just kind of set up the discussion for every player, and then if you guys just want to kind of bounce back and forth, that might be the best way to go about things here tonight. So Cam Newton against the Jets, pretty favorable matchup there. Then we move on to Derek Carr against the Chargers. Derek Carr and the I almost said Oakland Raiders. They're the Las Vegas Raiders. Managed 17 points against the Browns last week in a pretty boring game overall. Coach, what do you see out of Derek Carr as he faces the Chargers this week, who, Chargers defense was supposed to be a lot better this season than they were, but they still haven't been horrible. What do you see here that favors Derek Carr in this matchup?
Yeah, so Derek Carr, coming into last week, had been a QB1. He had a couple of nice performances in the previous 2 weeks. He had put up at Kansas City, he put up 25 fantasy points, and then Tampa Bay, he put up 20, which both were pretty tough matchups. Last week at Cleveland, there was pretty terrible weather, strong winds. It was a tough passing game there. But this week he's going to Los Angeles. Weather's going to be fine. Chargers are giving up 23.2 fantasy points a game to quarterbacks. And then the last 2 weeks, they've given up 5 touchdown passes. 2 a couple weeks ago to Gardner Minshew. And last week, they allowed Drew Lock to throw for 3 touchdowns against them. And then last season, Derek Carr had his last game against the Chargers. He put up 23 points there as well. Good matchup. Good, this week with some key quarterbacks on buys and possibly out. Derek Carr becomes a QB1 that you can start with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can when you have Derek Carr in your lineup, but pretty confident, I guess.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I have Derek Carr. Let me just pull up where I slotted him. I got him at QB 12, so that's right in the mix to be a starter in a 12-team league here, I think, which is where Coach is coming from. As he said, the Chargers giving up a lot of fantasy points per game to the quarterback position. And, I mean, it's like Anthony Lynn just kind of waves some sort of magic wand in the second half of these games, and they lose. I don't even know what else to say after last week, but if you're gonna blow that kind of lead to Drew Lock and the Denver Broncos, I think we're talking about a much better Las Vegas Raiders offense in terms of reliability and consistency than we are in Denver. There's talent on both sides. I'm not going to argue that, but just what we've seen out of the Raiders and the Chargers getting out to these great leads, that plays right into Derek Carr's hands from a fantasy standpoint. I think the Raiders, they'll get a lead in games and they'll funnel most of the snaps through the running game. But knowing you have Justin Herbert and that passing offense on the other side to put up points, and if they hold true to form, that'll be in the first half, and that'll mean Las Vegas will be trailing when we come out of the break. That's just going to be more passing volume for Derek Carr. So I like the call.
Yeah, you see more points out of this matchup this week than against the Browns last week. I mean, 17's not all that hard to beat. But the Chargers have given up. They looked good early on against the Broncos last week, and then they gave up how many points in the second half? So you think something like that might happen again with Derek Carr here? You just kind of hit on it there, Henry. You think he might end up passing a bunch? Or really, what's the one thing here that is making Derek Carr so much more favorable than in weeks previous?
You asking me or Coach?
Whoever wants to.
Well, I guess I can start. I don't know. To me, Derek Carr has not been terrible in a lot of weeks. I think he has kind of flown a bit under the radar. I have him in a dynasty league where the team is rebuilding, but it's a super flex. And so I've been starting him here on several occasions. And, I could be in a worse position, I think, than starting Derek Carr most weeks. But just the anticipation of them having to keep pace with the Chargers on the scoreboard in this game, and also looking at the numbers and what LA has given up to quarterbacks previously, I think that would just be the basis of this argument to have him be a more comfortable play than, say, any other week on my end.
Yeah, and if you look at his season so far, he's had multiple touchdowns every game, but there was 2 that he didn't. Week 1 at Carolina, he only had 1 touchdown, and then last week at Cleveland. And last week, the weather was definitely a factor, which it won't be this week. And I'm just looking to see, but I thought Carolina against quarterbacks was one of the tougher units here. Yeah, Carolina's only given up 16.3 fantasy points a game to quarterbacks. So, the 2 games that he struggled, he's dealt with a very good defense, and then he also had a tough weather last week. But this is a great opportunity for him. I think you're looking at least a couple touchdowns, probably at least 250 yards, and that should put him right there at QB2, or at least get you a nice strong base that won't lose the week for you.
And honestly, at this point in your fantasy season, A lot of it, I guess, is about not making those choices that are going to cost you a week. You just want to, especially if you're on your way to the playoffs, you're kind of going to want to just try and coast into the playoffs and keep your playoff spot here in your playoff seed. You know, playing a quarterback that can get the job done but won't cost you a ton of points, won't turn the ball over a bunch of times. I'm having that problem with Ben Roethlisberger, where it's like he has all these matchups where it should be favorable and he should have a lot more points than he does, but he ends up turning the ball over 3 times a week. And so I end up with 15 points or 18 points, somewhere in there. So yeah, right now in fantasy, if you've got a guy who can just do the job, protect the ball, that might be something that you really want to highly consider. Which is interesting that I kind of bring that up, because one of those guys, as somebody that's been one of those guys for most of the season, is Teddy Bridgewater. But he's got a very tough matchup against the Chiefs this week. I don't see the Panthers standing much of any chance to stay in this game. They've been slowly declining on a week-by-week basis on like how impressive they look. They weren't able to take care of business against the Falcons. And now he's got a tough matchup against the Chiefs. Besides, the lack of booming plays that usually come from Teddy Bridgewater, and the fact that the Chiefs are the best team in football, what other reasons are there for sitting Teddy Bridgewater here this week, Coach?
Yeah. So last week I had proceeded to have Teddy Bridgewater listed as a start. We talked about great matchup against the Falcons, and then he proceeded to go out and only put up 13 fantasy points. He did leave the game briefly, came back though, but it was the worst performance quarterbacks had against the Falcons this year. Now he's got the Chiefs. The Chiefs' pass defense is actually one of the tougher units in the league. They are giving up only 16.3 fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And their run defense is definitely where you want to attack them. It's not a poor run defense by any means, but it is more susceptible than their pass defense is. And now with Christian McCaffrey coming back, I'm sure Mike Davis will still get some touches as well. Carolina's best to try and establish some running game, keep Mahomes and the Chiefs offense on the sideline as much as they can. And but Teddy does not make for a good play. We talked last week a little bit too about how he's done well in most of his good matchups, and then his tough matchups he's been definitely bench worthy. So this week is one of those tough matchups, and you can find a better starter than Teddy.
Yeah, I fully agree, Coach. The Chiefs' pass defense, you touched on it, how they have been pretty solid here this year, and adjusted defensive efficiency, according to Football Outsiders, they rank 7th against the pass, far worse against the run, and that's kind of hampering their overall rating in the adjusted metrics a little bit. They're 28th against the run, but that secondary is capable. And also the other thing I would bring to light here, if this game plays out anything like Carolina's game against Atlanta did last week, Bridgewater is once again going to be running for his life. That offensive line did not hold up. The Falcons, to me, are showing a lot of signs of improvement defensively, particularly up front. And that game was a real showcase for some of those pass rushers. They were constantly in the backfield. Bridgewater even had to leave the game at one point because of taking a hit that knocked him out for a little bit. So PJ Walker truthers like myself, shout out XFL MVP. We had a little fun there for a minute, but you never want to see a guy go down. And do we know that Carolina is going to have those blocking issues fixed coming into this week? No, we don't. Steve Spagnuolo is a defensive coordinator who confuses quarterbacks all the time with a variety of looks and blitzes and such that he throws at them. So it looks to be an uphill battle here for Bridgewater this week. And speaking of the Chiefs, we actually have a question dropped in here over on YouTube. A reminder, if you guys are watching and you want to ask questions, head on over to the Flurry Sports YouTube channel. You can find the show live and drop your start-sit questions in the chat. Sean 112 Sean112 would like to know Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Aaron Jones this week. So pivoting a little bit from quarterbacks to running backs here, but what do you guys think of the Chiefs top back or Aaron Jones tonight, who is, banged up? He's going to be out there, but how big is his workload going to be, and how much is Green Bay going to kind of pump him up with volume here coming off this calf injury?
Well, I personally am sort of surprised that they are running Aaron Jones on the field. Like, obviously, they've got without Aaron Jones, their two running backs would be two guys who carried the ball combined 4 times this year in Williams, and I'm forgetting the other guy. Is it Irvin? One of those guys. Yeah, Irvin. Between them, they've carried the ball 4 times, and all 4 of them came from Irvin, actually. So even though the Packers would have been, very questionable in the backfield, they still have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. They still have a healthy Devontae Adams. I thought they could probably get by just by going heavy on the passing attack. And with the matchup, I mean, the 49ers have absolutely nobody tonight, just completely decimated. So I think their offense is going to struggle anyways. So I'm surprised that the Packers are rolling Aaron Jones out there. However, I don't expect them to give him the ball maybe 10 or 12 times. I think would be a lot in this game, unless they absolutely are just not getting it done elsewhere and they feel that Jones is healthy enough to take a little bit of a workload. But I just don't think that's going to be the case here. I'm fading Aaron Jones because I wasn't planning on him being out there anyways this week. And I'm going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he should be able to be fully healthy enough to get a full workload. And, hey, if Jones plays a lot and he bites and this decision bites you in the butt, I apologize for that, but that's the risk that I'm going to take tonight. I just would hate to put Aaron Jones in my lineup and then see him touch the ball 6 or 7 times tonight because Aaron Rodgers is just making it happen through the air. And I think that's the way that this game might end up going.
Yeah, I would agree. Just kind of echoing on a couple of things Jake said here. Looking at matchups, first off, you have tough matchup against the 49ers run defense, which is giving up 13.4 fantasy points a game to running backs. Carolina's given up 23.1, which is on the other end of the spectrum. They're the 4th from last as far as PPR points to running backs. You have Aaron Jones, who from multiple sources, I'm seeing that he likely is going to be in a limited role. It is a calf injury. Anytime you have a soft tissue injury, those are pretty easy to re-injure as well. And it could be something where after 1 or 2 carries, he might be out, and you don't know what you're getting for a workload. So I think Edwards-Helaire, his workload has gone down with Le'Veon Bell in town, but I would take, I think you're going to get probably 10, 12 guaranteed touches against Carolina as opposed to an iffy 10 out of Aaron Jones against San Francisco. So sign me up for Helaire there, Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, and the other thing is Aaron Jones he makes the most of his opportunities. He's always producing at a high level, but it's not like he's a traditional bell cow kind of back who just touches the ball, 25 times a game, 25 times a game. It's just not how it's been for him. He obviously has the ability to catch the ball too, but if you're just talking about rushing, his last 3 games, he's had 16 attempts, 15 attempts, and 10 attempts. So if you divide that number, say, in half tonight, you're only looking at anywhere from 7 to 9 carries. He's coming off a calf, so he might not have that explosivity. And they're probably not going to ask him to try and do a ton in the running game tonight. So I think 10 to 12 touches maybe is probably going to be your ceiling, and that includes maybe 2 or 3 receptions as well. I just don't think we're going to get a lot of out of Aaron Jones tonight because the Packers aren't going to need it.
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. Coach kind of hit it on the head there. The Carolina run defense is just not good in terms of fantasy points allowed and adjusted metrics, not even concerning fantasy football. I think you're looking at two guys who are both going to be in timeshares a little bit this week, just given the injury to Jones, and also now with Le'Veon Bell in Kansas City. I would still rather side with Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. Number one, given the matchup, and number two, I don't think we've fully gotten a clear picture of just what this timeshare is going to be like in Kansas City to date. The Jets game, well, you can say what you want about that, but Kansas City ran away with it, and neither back really needed to be called on a whole heck of a lot there. So I think we saw Edwards-Helaire in there down at the goal line as well. Everyone, when they got down there, the one drive, was like, oh, is Bell going to come in and score against the Jets? And it didn't happen. CEH stayed out there, so I think that's an encouraging sign from a fantasy standpoint. Not that we're necessarily chasing touchdowns, but I think you can bank on Edwards-Helaire as the lead running back there. And given the matchup, I think both are plenty capable of producing in fantasy this week.
Just one final tidbit to throw out there. The last time Aaron Jones played was Week 6 against Tampa Bay. He rushed the ball 10 times for only 15 yards. Obviously, Tampa Bay has a pretty good rush defense, as does San Francisco. So, again, coming off an injury and his last performance, he was averaging 1.5 yards a carry. I'm just not sprinting to start Aaron Jones this week. Obviously, as we move forward, Aaron Jones is a definite starter once you get him back and healthy, especially against Jacksonville probably next week. But again, with everything that those guys just said about Carolina, mixed with the fact everything I've been saying about Aaron Jones, I'm probably staying off of him this week. Again, it's not a hard decision for me because I fully expected Aaron Jones to not be out there, not even be available this week. So I guess not a huge loss for me, in my eyes, because I didn't expect him to be there. But hey, it's Aaron Jones, so he always has the ability to, if they get down to the 1 or 2 yard line, they might sneak him in there. He finds the end zone, ends up getting his in fantasy, but I'd rather take the risk with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's got a great chance of finding the end zone as well. So thank you for the question. Appreciate it. Please ask us any more questions. Drop your questions on YouTube. That probably works best, or tweet them at us. We're going to get back on track here, though, as we continue to talk about quarterbacks. The other sit that you've got besides Teddy Bridgewater is Ryan Tannehill, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is Ryan Tannehill against the Bears. And it seemed to be a pretty common theme here as we've been doing these shows for 9 weeks now. Whoever's playing the Bears almost always seems to pop up in the sit category. The Bears, some are saying, are the worst. What are they, 5-2 now, or 6-2, somewhere in there? The worst at their record that they've seen in a long time, simply because that offense it's ugly to watch. They made the quarterback switch. It didn't really make that much of a difference, but their defense has been doing work. Their defense has been keeping them in the games and allowing them to have opportunities at late game comebacks. So the Bears playing against the Titans and Ryan Tannehill this week. Coach, do you just see a limited amount of success, a limited amount of attempts, or do you see Derrick Henry finding success against the Chicago defense? What is it this week that is making you fade Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, tough matchup. The Bears are giving up 15.5 fantasy points a game to opposing quarterbacks, which is right there as one of the top defenses against quarterbacks. They're a little bit more susceptible on the ground. I look for Derrick Henry to get plenty of carries this week. Really, with Tannehill this season, he's thrown multiple touchdowns in all but one game. But the yardage numbers is where I don't see him putting up a whole lot of yardage this week. I see he could probably get a couple touchdown passes and likely probably will. But as far as the yardage, he's only gone over 300 yards twice this year, and then he's thrown for 249 or less in his other 5 games. And so if he only gets a couple touchdown passes and he's under 250, you're not looking at a QB1 type of week. That being said, he's not going to kill you if you have him in your lineup. He won't. He has a decent floor that if you have to roll him out there, I definitely understand that. But I just don't think this is a ceiling type of game out of him. But you know, so I'm saying as far as out of the top 12, yes, but he's better than other quarterbacks. So you can throw him in there, but just don't expect a ceiling game out of him this week.
Well, he's only thrown 3 interceptions all season. 2 of them have come in the last 3 games. He also was putting up very impressive numbers throughout the first 6 weeks of the season, and has back-to-back 17.3 point performances now in the last 2 weeks. One of them against Pittsburgh, the other against Cincinnati, and I would put Chicago on par with Pittsburgh. So yeah, he's been very touchdown dependent this year. I don't think there's any way you could argue that he hasn't been. If you just look at the touchdown numbers, the touchdown column, it looks pretty impressive. But then you look at his total points, and it's like, well, yeah, he had 2 touchdowns, but still only got me 17 points, and it's because the total yardage just really has not been there. Again, not killing you with interceptions, but yeah, maybe like you said, a nice floor, but probably won't reach the ceiling, especially this week. Henry, what are your feelings on Ryan Tannehill? You check your mic. We can't hear you. There you go. Yep, there
You got me now. Okay,
Yeah.
I am so sorry. I was just saying, I hate to be the echo chamber here for Coach, but I kind of have Ryan Tannehill right in the exact same place as he does here. So yet another player we agree on. Currently, my QB 15 on the week, and that can change. I have Matthew Stafford one spot above him, so of course, if Stafford is ruled out, you would presume that Tannehill would rise up. But this is a game I'm really looking forward to watching. Tennessee, really good offensively. They're coming off a down week. How are they going to rebound? And they're going up against the mighty Chicago Bears defense here at that. So this will be a fun one to check out in the early window of games on Sunday. It's interesting to bring up some of those touchdown dependent stats for Tannehill, and you would kind of figure that he's going to need to score touchdowns to be fantasy relevant this week again, given the Bears are a top 5 team in terms of points allowed to the position on a weekly basis. So how are the Titans going to look to attack this Chicago Bears team? It's the discrepancy between the Bears in terms of adjusted defensive efficiency against the pass and the run has narrowed. They're 5th against the pass and 11th against the run. That was a little bit wider a couple of weeks ago. So Chicago shoring up the run defense here a little bit. And, of course, they're still going to be applying pressure. The Titans, of course, without Taylor Lewan, are they going to be able to hold off the presence of pass rushers in the backfield when you have Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, all these big names working for Chicago up front? So I'm interested to see how this one plays out. I think Tannehill is a borderline play this week where, like Coach said, he's in such a great offense that he should be able to produce something. But in terms of a matchup, I don't want him out there in my lineups whatsoever.
And as you mentioned, coming off a down week, and that down week happened against the Cincinnati Bengals, the team that we just seem to love talking about here. At least I do. The Bengals, they're doing everything that they can, everything right this season, and they just add to an impressive season, an impressive resume, early resume for Joe Burrow by beating the Titans last week. So there you go. Little bit of quarterback talk for you. Just a reminder here: starting Cam Newton, starting Derek Carr, and fade Ryan Tannehill and Teddy Bridgewater if you have the ability. Moving on to running backs now. We're going to start by talking about somebody that everybody knew was going to be a big fantasy impact this season. I bet everybody was gunning for him in the top rounds of their fantasy drafts. It is Ja'Marr Hasty. I don't even know if that's how you say his first name or not, but he's playing the Packers this week, or tonight actually, and he's going to be one of the few healthy people overall that the 49ers have on offense. He's going to be the only other guy in the backfield besides Jerick McKinnon, who I like Jerick McKinnon this week. I think he's going to get his. He's beaten the Packers down a few different times on both the Vikings and the 49ers. So I like Jerick McKinnon. But, Coach, you also like Hasty here. He managed 13.7 points against the Seahawks last week. Um, and again, he's one of the few guys that the 49ers are going to be able to look to here tonight on offense. What else about Hasty makes this a favorable matchup? And besides the fact that the Packers are one of the worst teams regarding run defense in the entire NFL, and Pro Football Focus ranks them very last, dead last in tackling. So maybe you don't need to have name recognition. You don't even need to have skill to find success as a running back against the Packers right now.
Yeah, and part of that is buoyed by Delvin Cook having such a big week against the Pack last week. But this week here, according to my numbers here, the Packers are dead last as well in fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs, 29.2 per game. You know, as far as the backfield split for the 49ers, it looks like this is, and I think it's Jamichael.
Yeah, that could
I
be.
think
That's
is,
probably right. I'm horrible with names, so that makes
yeah,
more
and
sense.
the only reason I know that, yeah, I caught that earlier there when I was, and so it's, but he had more carries last week. He had 12 carries. McKinnon only had 3. It looks like this week I would think Hasty's going to get more of a workload. McKinnon will probably get the more pass receptions. But I think based upon the skeleton crew that the 49ers are rolling out there, I mean, Ross Dwelly's their best receiver they have out there today. So I think that their best chance of keeping the game close is to pound it on the ground. I think Hasty's going to get he might even get 20 carries. He'll probably get 20 touches tonight. And I think with that type of workload against the Packers, you're looking at an RB2.
Yeah, I like the call here as well. Jerick McKinnon's the guy. I'm not quite so sure what I want to do with him. I think tonight I have him in a dynasty league, and this team's actually contending. So I have other names. I think most weeks that I would start over him anyway. But yet San Francisco is just so decimated in terms of injuries, in terms of this dang virus. The running backs are going to play a role here, and Green Bay can't tackle. We discussed that at length on Monday's show, Jake and Tanner and I. So maybe Jamichael Hasty, in terms of, even with the volume, is able to break a big scoring play and boost his yardage total in that respect as well. So I think Hasty is a solid play. It's pretty locked in, I think, for me as an RB2 here this week and going forward until San Francisco is able to get healthy here in this backfield. Guys, we do have a couple of questions that came in here. They're both tight ends, and I guess I'm gonna take a different approach to these, and I'll just give my thoughts on them, and you guys, I guess, can jump in with any disagreements you have. Anna Chow wants to know Robert Tonyan in tonight's game for the Pack or Hunter Henry for the Chargers. He'd be going up against the Raiders. For me, that's going to be Hunter Henry, pretty clear. I don't know how you can justify starting Tonyan, who we don't even know if the volume is going to be there on a weekly basis, over a guy like Hunter Henry, especially going up against the vulnerable Raiders secondary there. I have a pretty big discrepancy between the two in my rankings. And then the other one that you guys can chime in on, Aaron Matern wants to know Jordan Reed in tonight's game, who has officially been deemed active off the injured reserve. He will play tonight. Of course, the 49ers do have Ross Dwelly as well. Jordan Reed or Jonnu Smith. And again, the Bears defense is great. They're not particularly amazing at defending the tight end in terms of fantasy points. Jonnu Smith, a down week last week. I think Tennessee is going to need to have him involved in this game to find success. So I would be rolling with the stud over the upstart, I guess, in both of these questions. But I'll leave the floor to you guys to offer your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just chime in really quick here, and then you can wrap up, Coach. I think as far as Tanyan, look, the Packers are not in the same situation as the 49ers. They have their entire receiving core healthy. And Tanyan has completely fallen off over the past few weeks ever since having that massive night. But again, Devontae Adams was out. Alan Lazard was newly out back then. You can go down the list of injuries that the Packers were dealing with. They have a fully healthy receiving core tonight. And guys like Sternberger have gotten involved. Aaron Rodgers has been looking his way in the red zone lately. So Tanya, yes, he does have the second most receptions on the Packers as a whole, behind Devontae Adams, which I don't know if many people know that or not. It's kind of crazy, but it also just shows the lack of production that guys like MVS and St. Brown and stuff have provided this year. So yeah, Tanyan's been getting the looks. But I don't think they're going to need to utilize him too much here tonight, as they do have all of their pass catchers healthy. So I would roll with Hunter Henry, was it? I would definitely roll with Henry.
Yes.
And then again, yeah, I agree with Reed. He's been out for a while now, and he as well had one big game. He's more of the boomer bust guy, right? I mean, Nick Mullins has played with him before. They've hooked up for touchdown passes before. They are going to be looking for anybody to catch the ball tonight. So if you want to take a risk, you want to take a chance. If you like the rest of your lineup, maybe try Jordan Reed. But if you want that safety blanket, yeah, you got to go. There's Smith here.
Yeah. So as far as the first one's concerned, Hunter Henry would be my play of those between Henry and Tanyan. Henry, to me, is still kind of in that upper echelon of tight ends where it'd be tough to take him out of the lineup most weeks, just knowing what his upside is and knowing how good that offense is playing. As far as the second question, it was Jordan Reed, and what was the other tight end?
Jonnu Smith with Tennessee.
Jonnu Smith. Just looking here. So you got Jonnu versus the Bears, and you've got Jordan Reed tonight.
Which is tough because the 49ers are so depleted that you feel like Jordan Reed's got to get some looks. But again, backup quarterback, which you can say what you want about Nick Mullins. I feel like Reed has potential here, but he's fresh off IR. And, Coach, I don't know what you have for numbers. I was just looking at, and the Bears are actually on the lower end in terms of points allowed, or defending the tight end position is the better way to phrase it. I have them giving up over 14 PPR fantasy points per game. So
I will say this about Reed. When he's fresh, when he's coming back off an injury, that seems to be when he is at his best. He comes back, he has one good week, and then he disappears again, or he gets hurt again. When he had his massive week earlier on in the season, I believe he had just been activated that week as well. He came out, that was week 2 only, I believe. Or no, he played week 1, had a couple catches, but if you remember, it was, this story about his comeback, fighting through all the concussions, this and that. And week 2, he came out and had 50 yards and 2 touchdowns for 24 fantasy points. Now, again, that was against the New York Jets all the way back in week 2. So do or don't put as much at stake as you want in that. But I will say he's at his best coming back off of injury, it seems.
Yeah. So I have a kind of a grudge against Jordan Reed, in particular, a game a couple years back, a fantasy playoff game. I just needed him to catch another pass, and in a PPR league, I needed 1 reception for 8 yards. It was a game where he got knocked out with he had a bum shoulder going in, and he came back into the field, and the very next play, he punched a guy on the other team and got ejected, and I ended up losing by 1.8 points to move on to the championship.
That's worthy of a grudge.
Jordan Reed. Yeah, so Jordan Reed's kind of been on my as a do not draft guy for me. It's a guy that I've kind of avoided. that being said, so as far as looking at him versus Jonnu Smith, I do see a path where Jordan Reed could be the primary target for the 49ers tonight. With Jonnu Smith, the thing that's a little alarming is I'm looking at his receptions the last few weeks, and it's pretty minimal as far as, and I'm wondering if he might need to stay in to block a little bit too against the Bears and their pass rushers. So that would be the concern I'd have on Jonnu this week. So to me, it's which one of these guys is going to score the touchdown, I think, is what it really boils down to. And so I think in that regard, I would probably give Reed the nod just because I think he's the most capable receiver on the 49ers tonight. It was news to me. I thought Ross Dwelley was going to be their number one target tonight here, so that was news to me that he's playing. But I think I would play Reed of those two.
So there you go. I think we're pretty much all in agreement here, except for maybe that Reed. But again, I got no problem with Reed if you're willing to take that risk. Obviously, we know he's probably touchdown dependent, or a touchdown will really make him worthy of that start. And against Green Bay, not too hard to find a tight end touchdown, especially when you got so few options on that offense. So I think pretty much overall consensus is don't go with Tanya tonight. Just the workload's not going to be there, and then it's pick your poison with the other one. You want a consistent output, probably go with Smith. You want a make or break type performance to depend on, you're probably going to go with Reed there. So thank you for the question. Couple questions tonight that we fielded. I always enjoy doing these questions, so please keep them coming in at us. But until then, let's get back to Coach's article here. One last point that I wanted to make on Hasty. If you're making a DFS lineup for tonight, Hasty is 7,200, which usually is a pretty decent price. But honestly, he's like the fifth or sixth most expensive guy in the whole game tonight, and that just comes from, again, a lack of offensive choices and a lack of offensive players. But it's funny, I've put 3 lineups together now, and one of them I had both Nick Mullins and Aaron Rodgers, so I was able to use up my entire salary. But this one that I'm staring at now, I have $1,300 left over, and another one I had $3,600 left over, just simply because the names. I'm drafting guys who only cost a couple $100 or $1,800 a piece. Guys like Juszczyk and Sternberger and guys like that. So it's very interesting. It makes you feel uncomfortable when you've got that much money left in a DFS lineup, but then I'm going back through and I'm like, no, I'd rather have this guy than the Packers defense, or no, I'd rather have this guy than Mason Crosby. So you don't always have to use up your entire salary, but it just makes you feel uncomfortable when you don't. So Hasty, 7,200 tonight. And while we're talking about the game, I think Juszczyk is going to find the end zone tonight. So if you're looking for a bet tonight, anytime scorer for the San Francisco fullback, plus 400. So even if you want to throw a half a unit on that or something like that, I think he finds the end zone here against the Packers, who again rank 30th against the rush, or 32nd, really, depending on what site and what stats you're looking at. Moving on to Damian Harris. Coach, you alluded to this early on when we were talking about Cam Newton. Here it is again, Patriots, back and forth week to week. We're avoiding all Patriots, and now this week we're starting 2 Patriots. Again, he's got a favorable matchup against the Jets, and was able to get his last week. I think, without looking here, I think he had somewhere around 17 points, playing against the defense in the Bills, which obviously has not played up to what everybody thought their potential was this year, but they are definitely playing better than the Jets defense. Tell us a little bit more about Damian Harris here for New England.
Yeah, and I think Henry hit the nail on the head earlier here, talking about how the Patriots' offense, really what they need to do, and really what their best game plan is establishing that running game that they have. And Damian Harris has a couple of weeks here with some good usage here, where he's let's see, I had the Jets are giving up 20.3 fantasy points a game. And then Harris does have 11 or more touches in 3 of their last 4 games. I wrote in the article that just when I go ahead and recommend Harris, this will be the week that Rex Burkhead becomes the star and goes off for his hat trick of touchdowns here. But I think Harris is a solid play. I think we're going to see the Patriots ground and pound against the Jets here, and I think you're looking at around 15 touches for Harris, and if he gets that, I think you're looking at an RB2 day.
Yeah, I love this call. I am in full force here. I've been on the Damian Harris train here for a few weeks, kind of since just before that outing against the Chiefs. And, he made me wait a little bit, but last week was a good showing against the Bills, and another great opportunity here this week against the Jets. Runs with both speed and power between the tackles. I really like Damian Harris just from an overall football player standpoint, and I think that with just the sheer number of injuries and lack of production that the Patriots can expect on a week-to-week basis in the passing game, I think that he's going to continue holding value here. And, like Coach said, I may have said it earlier too, I don't think James White and Rex Burkhead are going away, but Harris is clearly the early down back here, the running back, whereas those two are just going to mix in and out. Josh McDaniels with some unique play calling and stuff to kind of get them involved on pitches and whatnot last week against the Bills. I could see them wanting to stretch the field, stretch to the Jets defense from sideline to sideline here Monday night as well. And when you have a guy like Cam Newton, it just makes it all the more lethal. So love the Damian Harris call, and I will be benefiting mightily if he can continue. I'll just say that. So hopefully we are correct.
And again, both these running backs playing the Packers and the Jets, who are top 3 worst run defenses in the league. So yeah, pretty much no reason to fade either one of these guys, and in fact, tons of reasons to start them. Moving on now to the sits, Jonathan Taylor versus the Ravens. Jonathan Taylor is interesting. He's only had 2 weeks where he's had single-digit performances, and he is getting well over 10 touches per game here. But as you mentioned in the article, Coach, he was out-touched by Jordan Wilkins, 21-13 last week. He now has to play the Ravens, and I think the Ravens are going to come into this game pissed off. I think they know the Colts are not as good as them, and I think they're going to take it to them. I like the Ravens a lot in the spot in this week. And Jonathan Taylor just is not going to be set up for success against the Ravens. However, and I'll let you expand on this a little bit more if you'd like, Coach, you're sitting him this week, but then you're probably locking him in as a starter throughout the remainder, as he's going to play Tennessee twice, Green Bay, Houston twice, and Las Vegas. He ends the season in Jacksonville, but Week 17 doesn't matter most of the time in fantasy. So am I correct in saying here that we're going to sit Jonathan Taylor this week, but then pretty much look to him the remainder of the season as a starter?
Yeah, as far as remaining matchups, it's a great schedule from here on out. The only red that I'm seeing on the matchups is at Pittsburgh, Week 16. But if he gets you that far, I'll take it. But this matchup here, the Ravens' run defense, as far as fantasy points allowed, is one of the best in the league, only giving up 13.4. They're right there with San Francisco as far as fantasy points allowed. Not really sure how the usage is going to work out. Apparently, Taylor had a bit of an injury last week there. It sounded like it was an ankle deal, but he was back at practice. It was interesting that as the game was kind of waning last week, that Wilkins was on the field getting the carries. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind this week as well. I would look to sit him on the bench, and then if you have him, and then if you don't have him, he might be worth trading for after this week. A nice little buy low before that schedule, and you could probably get him for, especially if he doesn't get a lot of touches this week, and the Ravens defense shuts down the Colts offense. I think you could probably get him for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I agree once again. I don't know if fantasy owners are going to be necessarily in a position where they can sit Jonathan Taylor, especially looking at deeper leagues. Like, you probably have invested a lot of capital into him just based on how you constructed your roster and where he was going even back during draft season with high hopes for the rookie. But I have him at RB24 this week, and that's like, bottom barrel of RB2 territory here in 12-team leagues. He's below a guy like JaMychal Hasty by quite a bit, actually, below Justin Jackson, below Damian Harris. I even have him below Zach Moss of the Bills going up against the Seahawks, which, we're not 100% sure how that backfield's playing out, but Moss has looked a heck of a lot more impressive than a guy like Devin Singletary here so far. Back to Taylor. Jake, I kind of take exception to the fact that you said the Ravens are so much better than the Colts. I feel like Indianapolis has been very much disrespected here. Even by myself, I would add. Phillip Rivers is getting it done. And while I don't know that he's going to have a great game this week going up against Baltimore necessarily, I don't know that the Ravens are going to have a great game offensively either. Indianapolis's defense, it's crazy, the metrics where they are at or near the top. I have somewhere I had a tweet about this. Yeah, I retweeted it this morning. So Colts defense through 7 games, 3rd in points allowed, 1st in yards allowed, 8th in takeaways, 1st in first downs allowed, 2nd in passing yards allowed, 7th passing touchdowns allowed, 1st in interceptions, 1st in rushing yards allowed. That's a major red flag for me when I'm looking at, I was looking at the expert consensus rankings over at Fantasy Pros. J.K. Dobbins, I don't know if he necessarily has, A, garnered the full lead on that Ravens backfield, but B, this is a heck of a matchup for the Ravens running backs here as well. And some of these stats would indicate it about Jackson as well. Just to finish up, they're 1st in rushing TDs allowed, 1st in percentage of drives, ending in a turnover, and 8th in pressure percentage. Colts rank 4th in fantasy points allowed to running backs, and I have the Ravens one spot ahead of them at 3rd in PPR scoring here, separated by 0.07 points. I think this is a hell of a matchup for just about every fantasy asset on both sides. I'm not confident in starting anyone really outside of Mark Andrews here. I have Lamar Jackson downgraded. I think this is a defensive slugfest, and the Ravens will come in pissed after last week, but this is a Colts team that's out for some respect, I believe. And so, if they don't throw that game against Jacksonville, they're sitting at 6-1 and in first place in their division. So I like the downgrade on Taylor. It's going to depend on your roster construction, whether you're able to sit him or not. Coach, I have Jerick McKinnon 2 spots below him. Would you fire on McKinnon there behind Hasty over Jonathan Taylor this week? I don't know. This is like a toss-up range where I'm moving guys around, and I'm not really sure what to make of it. I have Melvin Gordon 1 spot above Taylor. Le'Veon Bell is between McKinnon and Taylor for me. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. Obviously, Jake, you probably want to kind of come at me for that Colts take. Go ahead.
Coach, you can finish up first, because mine is more real life football related and less fantasy related.
Yeah. So as far as McKinnon and Taylor, I would probably lean McKinnon this week here. I mentioned Hasty's going to get probably 20 touches. I definitely think that McKinnon will also get at least probably 12 touches against the Packers defense. He'll probably get a few receptions in there that will help in PPR as well. You're probably looking at anywhere from 3 to 5 receptions. And then he has scored a touchdown in 5 out of 8 games this year. So he has had a nose for the end zone. Taylor, the lack of work last week is concerning, and it's been he hasn't had a whole lot of so over the past 3 games it's been 15 touches, 16 and 13. Tough matchup. You're probably looking at somewhere in that neighborhood of touches again. I think I would roll McKinnon out there on that depleted 49ers team against the Packers run defense over Taylor against the Ravens pretty tough run defense.
So we still have quite a bit to get through here and we only got 15 minutes before kickoff, so we may end up missing a little bit of the Packer game, but that's okay. We're going to try and keep it nice and concise for you the rest of the way through. My only comeback, and again, this is really not that important, but just my thoughts on why I said I think the Ravens are better than the Colts. The Colts just need to prove to me that they are as good as you think they are. They've struggled with teams, with not great teams this year, whereas outside of the Eagles 2 weeks ago, who the Ravens should have beat a lot more handily, they took it to the Bengals. They took it to Washington football team. They beat the Texans handily. They beat the Browns handily. Last week they beat the Steelers, but I mean the Steelers should have won that game, at least in my estimation, by more than they did. The Ravens didn't play that well, and they still were in it. Only ended up losing by 4 points. Whereas the Colts, on the other side of things, they've had to battle for it for a majority of weeks. The Bears, they only were able to put up 19 points against. They lost to the Browns. The Bengals almost beat them. The Lions were horrible last week, so they took it to the Lions, but the Lions sucked. They're 5-2. They could have been 6-1. I'm not saying this is a bad team or anything, but I just think they need to prove it to me more so than I already know the Ravens are a good team who just haven't hit their stride yet. They haven't been playing great football compared to what we saw out of them last year, what we know they can do. Lamar Jackson's been inaccurate as a passer. All these things are true, yes, but I think they're going to take all of that into Indianapolis this weekend and put a game together against the Colts. Only favored by 2 points. I like that spread. I definitely will take the Baltimore -2 spread here. And I don't know, maybe Indianapolis is better than I think they are. But again, I want them to prove it to me. And if they can prove it to me here, then I'll be all about them moving forward. Because again, they have an extremely favorable schedule moving forward. But might be a little bit tougher to take care of business against the Ravens than it's going to be in coming weeks against the Titans and the Texans and the Raiders and teams like that. That's my 2 cents on this matchup this weekend. We can debate that a lot more on Saturday if you would like. Actually, let's do that. Let's dive deeper into this game, and then we will talk about it at more length on Saturday. So tune in to watch Henry and I argue about Lamar Jackson versus Phillip Rivers. We still got a running back to get to, and then I want to ask you guys a quick question about Christian McCaffrey as well. So let's dive right into Ronald Jones. He's taking on the Saints this week. We saw him give up a bunch of touches last week to Leonard Fournette. Ronald Jones has been a guy that's been very frustrating to own this season. He's been up and down, up and down, up and down. Had a string of like 3 weeks in a row where he had almost 20 points every week. 18, 15, 26. So, yeah, he's been a frustrating guy to get a read on. But looked like Leonard Fournette came back and kind of established himself as the top guy again. As long as he can stay healthy, I think that the Bucs like Fournette more than they like Ronald Jones. Coach, you're sitting him against the Saints this week. And actually, I'm gonna direct this one to Henry here first, so he can get an opportunity to say a few things other than just I agree. Henry, Ronald Jones against the Saints. Do you think we see kind of the same limited workload that we saw last weekend? Is he going to get more touches, just not enough to make it worth a start here? Or do you have a different feeling about Ronald Jones against the Saints?
Yeah, I just don't know how much fantasy production we're necessarily going to see out of these Bucks backs in total this week. The Saints quietly pretty good against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed. I have them ranked sixth fewest, under 20 a game. I think for me all year long, it's been, just kind of waiting for Leonard Fournette to get over these injuries and get comfortable in this offense and see him take over the lead role there. He's the superior back in my eyes, and Ronald Jones definitely having his best season as a pro. But there's a reason they brought Fournette in, and I think it's because they know Ronald Jones just is a question of if he's going to hold up or not. I don't know. Or is it just a question of lack of talent? I'm not 100% sure. I think both are going to continue to be involved, but I think we're finally starting to see that pendulum shift in Fournette's favor here now that he's finally healthy. I would rather start him over Ronald Jones. And I mentioned the matchup there as well. It's going to be tough on both. So if I had to pick a Bucks back to start on Sunday Night Football this week, it would be Fournette.
And Coach, he did struggle with some drops and some fumbles earlier on in the season. It seems like he's kind of shored that up a little bit. But when you look at his overall attempts and usage, he's gone steadily downhill, going all the way back to week 4. 20 rushes, 17 rushes, and then 23 rushes, all the way down to 13 rushes, and then last week 7 rushes. So within the last 3 weeks, his usage has been cut in half every single week. Give me an over/under here, along with your thoughts on him as a whole. But give me an over/under 8 carries here, given what we've seen the last 3 weeks now, with the production being in half. You think he carries the ball more or less than 8 times?
I'm going to lean the less. I would say under 8. Based on matchup with the Saints, I have them given up 14.9 fantasy points a game to running backs. Like Henry mentioned, this is starting to look more and more like it's Fournette's backfield here. And they brought him in for a reason. He is the more talented back, in my opinion, as well. The workload has certainly indicated that going back to week 2 when Fournette was healthy, it was trending that way. And then Fournette has been dinged up, has been the case throughout his career. He missed several games, and Jones kind of took over those starting duties again. But now we're starting to see where it's turning into probably a 65, 35, 70, 30 type of a split. And Ronald Jones is on the short end of that. He still makes for a decent spot start because he is getting, around 10 touches. And if you need him in a better matchup, Tampa Bay looks like they're not slowing down as one of the best teams in the NFC this year. And he also makes for a nice handcuff because you see what he can do if Fournette does miss any more time. So, but I think his days of being a RB2 are over.
So there you have it. Not too tough of decisions here as far as starting backs. You're going to want to start Hasty and Harris, both without pretty much a second thought. Jonathan Taylor, there might be a little bit more debating you got to do, or you might be in a situation where you're forced to start him. But Ronald Jones, I too would avoid him if I can. But again, he's just been a very very difficult guy to get a full grasp on. But I think you're right, Coach. I think his days as a RB2 are over, and I think his numbers are going to continue to dwindle here, especially given the fact that Antonio Brown, who we'll talk about in just a minute here, is now active and ready to play for the Bucks. Once they get Godwin back, I think it's going to be more so about the passing game. So it's going to be less opportunities for either running back in general, and I think more of the opportunities are going to go to Fournette. So, yeah, with that in mind, I just want to ask you one quick question about Christian McCaffrey before we move on to wide receivers here, as we are only 7 minutes away from game time, so maybe we can try and fly through these wide receivers here. Um, but Christian McCaffrey, the articles on ESPN, they have him as a must start candidate against Kansas City this week if he is back and healthy. I kind of am in the camp of leave him on the bench against Kansas City and use him in the following weeks against Detroit, Minnesota, Denver, and Green Bay. Much favorable matchups. I think owners who have held on to him for this long, obviously you're not going to trade Christian McCaffrey, but if you have held on to him and waited for him, I think you're going to be rewarded. I just don't think it's against Kansas City this week. Very quickly, what do you guys think about ESPN calling him a must start, Henry?
Well, if McCaffrey's going to be back, I think he's got to be in your lineup, right? I would agree with you that we should probably be tampering expectations a little bit. Just kind of wait and see: is he fully back? Are the Panthers going to give him full run? But we already went over how the Chiefs' pass defense is considerably better than their run defense, and so whether it's McCaffrey only or a mix of McCaffrey and Mike Davis, Carolina is probably going to be leaning on their running backs here in this game, both in terms of running the football and I would say short check down passes are going to be ideal for Teddy Bridgewater here if the offensive line looks anything like last Thursday. So if I have McCaffrey in a mid-season league, and I'll have him in my lineup for sure. He's just too good, I guess, for me, where if I bench him, even if it comes down to a flex spot for me and I bench McCaffrey and then he does Christian McCaffrey things,
feel dumb.
I can't live with myself if he does that. So, I agree. It probably won't be what we are accustomed to, but he's got to be in there.
Yeah, I agree. Season-long leagues, if you have him, he's got to be in there. If you've held on to him this long, been this patient, you're probably hurting, and I think you have to have him in for sure. As far as like daily fantasy, I'd stay away in cash games. I always like to make sure that he's fully healthy, but definitely worth throwing in for tournament lineups just because he can always go off for a couple touchdowns. And, against the Chiefs too, I think, those check downs, all those add up for PPR points. So.
Yeah, if you're talking just one day DraftKings, no matter how great Christian McCaffrey is, I'm not putting him in my lineup this weekend. He's still going to come back and cost an astronomical amount of money. You have no idea what the split's going to be like between him and Davis or anything like that. And Mike Davis has been good. Not as good in recent weeks as he first was when Christian McCaffrey went out, but I'm definitely not banking my whole lineup on Christian McCaffrey this weekend in DFS. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. So I guess look at that. I guess you both could work for ESPN because you agree Christian McCaffrey is a must start if he's healthy. He's got to be in your lineup. I've got no qualms about it. I just think, if you're going to start him, make sure you're not expecting 28 points out of him. That'll probably come in the coming weeks. Let's fly through these receivers. I know we're probably going to want to talk a lot about Antonio Brown and the Cowboys as a whole are grouped into this article here. So let's start, though, with Brandon Cooks at the Jaguars. You've got him as a start. Of course, he plays for the Texans, for those of you who don't know. Deshaun Watson has thrown for 300-plus yards and multiple TDs over the last 4 games. Will Fuller wanted to be traded. He was on the trade block, tweeted out that, sitting there tapping his fingers, I'm waiting. Obviously wanted to be traded. Maybe he comes out and wants to show other teams, why they should have traded for him. Maybe not, but Brandon Cooks is there. He's locked in as a Texan, and you've got him as a start against the Jaguars here. What else does Brandon Cooks have going for him this week outside of the extremely talented quarterback that he plays with?
Yeah, so I believe it was week 5 when Romeo Crennel replaced Bill O'Brien. That was the first game that the Texans played the Jaguars. In that game, Brandon Cooks had 8 catches for 161 yards and a touchdown. And then he's followed that up with back-to-back 9-target games. And so 9 for 68 and a touchdown and 7 for 60 last week or the week before the bye. Deshaun Watson's been playing great this year, especially for fantasy purposes. And he's made Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks both viable as wide receiver 2 or more, depending on the matchup. I just think, especially with Fuller looking at the trade block as well, this might be Brandon Cooks might be kind of evolving into the wide receiver 1 here, and I can see him possibly even garnering more targets there. But he makes for a great start this week. Has a very high ceiling too against the Jaguars.
Yeah, I'm okay with firing up most all Houston Texans here this week. It's funny talking about Will Fuller kind of waiting for that trade and never came. Even more so, I think funny on the part of the franchises here. Houston just needs draft picks at this point, I would argue, as they try and fix what is an awful defense, and the Packers failing once again to acquire that asset here to really kind of push them over the hump, I guess, and legitimize their title shots even more than they already are in the NFC, which to me is much more open, I think, than the AFC at this point, where there isn't really that group of elite teams that have separated themselves. So I like the call here. The Jaguars, for my money, they got that fluke win over the Colts in Week 1. They're right on par with the Jets here, and in terms of just awfulness, I guess is that a word? I'm gonna make it a word because they're both terrible at playing football right now. And Gardner Minshew's not going to be out there. It's rookie Jake Luton out of Oregon State. So I don't know how much Jacksonville's even going to be able to do against this Houston defense. That would be, I guess, the one scenario that might worry me a little bit is Houston gets way ahead in this game and the pressure's off Deshaun Watson to continue making plays in the passing game. But Brandon Cooks has been up and down, and I think you have to love him here as an up, given what he did against Jacksonville in the first matchup, as Coach pointed out.
Another great streaming option, too, as far as defense or DFS. You might want to dial up this Texans defense here. It's in the bottom half. Yeah,
which is
exactly.
crazy to say.
They've been bad. They've been bad for sure. But against Jacksonville with a rookie quarterback, what more do you want? Lock these guys in as a streamer. And they'll probably be relatively cheap in DFS as well, just because they've been so bad. Unless they consider, I don't really know how they price DFS if they're going to go up because they're facing a rookie quarterback. I'm not really sure, but you should be able to get them at a pretty decent price on DraftKings or FanDuel, whatever you use. So there you have it, Brandon Cooks. And by the way, just a few weeks back, 4 weeks back, 30.1 points, which is by far his season high, and that came against Jacksonville and the Gardner Minshew Jacksonville. So you can't really argue to bench a guy who just put up 30 on the same team 4 weeks ago. So a lot of good things going for Brandon Cooks this weekend here for the Texans. Coach, when I was scrolling through your article, I was like, man, I'm so happy he had Antonio Brown in here because I picked him up in as many leagues as I could. It was only 2 of them. I actually drafted him in my big money league early on, and then I just ran into a pinch, ran into some injuries, and I ended up having to drop him. I ended up regretting it because my buddy picked him up, I think, around week 6 or something like that before it was announced that he was going to come back and then was immediately signed by the Buccaneers. But you have him as a start right out of the gate. Obviously, Brown only played a few games last season, bounced around between a couple teams. Now has been fully out of the NFL for, a calendar year or close to a calendar year. Playing against the Saints this weekend, of course, playing with Tom Brady. So there is some familiarity there from the very short time that he was in New England. What makes him worthy of a start here besides for his raw talent? I don't know if any of you out there watching read my article a few weeks back about saying, will Antonio Brown actually make an impact this fantasy season? He's a guy who put up over 300 points 5 seasons in a row. Dating back to 2016, only 5 other guys total have put up over 300 points. He had two different 380 point seasons in that time frame. I mean, this guy can get it done. He's going to be out on the field with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin eventually. So he's going to see the second or third best cover guy. I mean, there's a lot of positives, I think, in the remainder of the season for Antonio Brown. But what makes you think he's going to come out and have starting value right here in week 1?
Yeah, so first off, the Saints are giving up 27.8 fantasy points a game to opposing wide receivers. It's looking like Chris Godwin is, I'm not sure if he practiced today. When I wrote this, it was looking like he was still going to be out again this week with his finger injury.
He was a limited participant in today's practice.
Okay, so if he's back, it kind of dampens a little bit my like for Brown this week. But Antonio Brown, his last game that he played was week 1 of 2019, and Tom Brady threw 8 targets at him, and he came away with 4 catches and 56 yards and a touchdown. When I wrote this, like I said, I thought Chris Godwin would likely be out. Even if Chris Godwin plays, I think you slide Antonio Brown. I don't know if he's a wide receiver 2 at that point, maybe more of a wide receiver 3 type of play, flex type play. But if Godwin does not play or is limited, we're reading that he's limited in any capacity. Antonio Brown, I think, is a wide receiver 2 this week.
Henry, do you have any strong feelings one way or the other on Antonio Brown?
I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this whole situation. I'm gonna be excited to find out. I think it depends on where your team's at, how deep the league is, who you have on bye this week. If it comes to me making a decision to plug him in as a starter, I'm not going to take away from any of Coach's points because they're all excellent points. It would just be a nervous call for me. Let's just say that. And I could be proven wrong by that. I very well could be proven wrong. Everything we're hearing is that Antonio Brown has really kind of gotten himself back on the right track here a little bit. He's been seeing a mental counselor, I guess you would call it, who Tom Brady sees. And that's how he got connected with him. So it's good to see him getting his life back on track, and hopefully that'll translate onto the football field. I think it's a scenario where I guess for me, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable seeing it before I believe it. But again, Coach lays out a lot of good points, and if Godwin's out, depending on the state of your team, that might be a consideration.
And again, this is a guy with immense talent, and it's not like he's been off the field for 3-4 seasons. He's not Dez Bryant coming back. He's not Josh Gordon coming back, where Gordon only has been on the same roster for the entire 16 games one time in his entire career, and I think he only played in like 13 of those 16 games. And then has been back and forth, making a comeback, off the team again. That's not what Antonio Brown has gone through. He kind of hit this point where everything just fell apart, and it's been a mess for the last about year and a half, 2 years now. But before that, like I mentioned, 5 years in a row with over 300 fantasy points, that led all the way up to 2018. We're not talking about that long ago that he had a 300-plus point season. So all he has to do is remember who he is, remember why he's playing football, how good he is at football, and the success he's going to be able to find if he can just keep it all together mentally and keep his business on the field. And hopefully, with reuniting with Tom Brady and with the mental help and whatever else is going on with him, hopefully he's able to keep it all together, because he is a talent and he is fun to watch. So hopefully things turn out well for Antonio Brown. It'll definitely it's a risk. I guess I think we can fairly call it a risk this week. But even if he finds the end zone once, it'll probably be on some sort of big play. So he may only need a couple a couple big plays there to make that start worth it. So good luck to you, and good luck to Antonio Brown if you've got him in your starting lineup this weekend. Moving on to our sit category. This first one is very easy, and the second one is much more of a debate for me. First of all, there's probably not too much to say here. We're sitting all Cowboys wide receivers. The strange thing is Michael Gallup actually got a boost with Ben DiNucci. Ended up having one decent week, but DiNucci just has not shown that he can. He's trying. I'll give him that. He's out there. He's trying. He's trying to make plays. He's avoiding the rush as best as he can. But 2 fumbles last week, only 180 yards through the air. Playing Pittsburgh this week, who obviously has a better pass rush than Philadelphia. Pittsburgh going to be all over this Dallas offense. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas scores 3 points, maybe 10 points if you're being generous. But I think it's a week where they're going to need to rely on their running backs. Maybe a bit of a bounce back week for Zeke, but maybe not even that. Maybe they might struggle across the board. I'm with you here, Coach. I'm fading all Cowboys wide receivers and pass catchers as a whole, including Dalton Schultz. They're just not going to be able to get it done against Pittsburgh this week, and I think it's that simple.
Yeah, Garrett Gilbert or Cooper Rush are coming in at quarterback. Bonus points if either one of you guys know where they went to college.
No.
Either of them? I had to look it up myself. Gilbert was a SMU guy, and Cooper Rush was a Central Michigan guy. So that's who's.
So did DiNucci just get benched, or did something happen to him?
I believe he is benched. I believe that was what happened. Yeah. So DiNucci was benched.
I don't know. That seems questionable to me. Obviously, a lot of things McCarthy has done this season can be questionable to a lot of people, but it's like the dude's out there trying, and you think either one of these guys is going to be any better than DiNucci? Like, I don't know. Because the one thing you don't want to see out of a young quarterback is just somebody that looks so uncomfortable. The game is way too fast. He can't handle the pressure. And DiNucci was getting hit. He was getting back up. He was trying to make sidearm throws. He made a couple decent passes. Like, the dude's out there trying. And I'd at least give him another look, but I don't know. I guess I'm not the head coach.
Yeah, perhaps McCarthy learned his lesson after a whole season of Brett Hundley after Rodgers went down.
He's probably like, if it's a quick trigger, if it's not working after 1 week, it's on to the next guy. Like, I wish he would have had that mentality during that Hundley season. Boy, was that some ugly football.
Yeah, I mean, but this offense, I think it's devolved to the point where you're probably looking at Ezekiel Elliott, and you're playing him again because you have to. He's probably not better than an RB2 at this point, maybe low-end RB1 just because of workload. Ironically, Greg Zuerlein actually had his highest point production last week based on hitting multiple long field goals there, which is kind of crazy. Typically, you want kickers from high-scoring teams, but so maybe Ezekiel Elliott and Greg Zuerlein are the 2 plays for Dallas here, but I think everyone else is a stay away.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's pretty clear cut here, pretty simple. Henry, do you have anything to add to the conversation?
No, I'm pretty turned off at this point. I would love to move Amari Cooper in the one league I have him. Doesn't seem to be anyone rushing to grab him. So I'm kind of stuck with him at this point. I'll probably be starting him actually this week because of bye weeks with Tyler Boyd and Jalen Reagor. But, I've got sound running backs on that team. So I guess I'm going to cross my fingers and hope for the best.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you guys – I guess I'll ask my own start-sit question right here. Would you guys start Amari Cooper in a wide receiver spot there? Or would you start let's see, I have Jamison Crowder, who's questionable still, and then I have Jacoby Myers as well. So those are the other options at receiver. And Mixon is on a bye, so Latavius Murray would be the flex option if I only started 2 wideouts.
Honestly, yeah.
That's ugly.
Anybody except for Cooper. I mean, I mean,
Really?
it's
Okay.
just I don't see Dallas being able to do anything with now their fourth quarterback and basically the same number of weeks. Cooper is a guy that basically you have to force the ball downfield. He's a stretch the field kind of guy. You're looking down the field to find Amari Cooper. I don't know. I just don't think that's going to happen with either one of these quarterbacks. Probably wouldn't happen with Ben DiNucci anyways. Um, Cooper had what, less than 2 points last week. There's just no reason to start him right now, especially against Pittsburgh. And by the way, DraftKings probably going to lose their asses on this, but they have the team total by the Cowboys at 13.5. You really think that the Cowboys are going to score 14 or more points against the Steelers here? And you're only laying minus 118. I love that bet. Under 13.5 for the Cowboys this week with a fourth or a fifth string, whatever you want to consider that guy. But yeah, I'm definitely avoiding Cooper here.
Yeah, what were the other what was the other name besides Crowder at wide receiver?
So it would be Jacoby Myers, and I actually I have an open spot because I just dropped Kendrick Bourne here before kickoff. He was my alternate plan that I was going to start it as my wide receiver too, and hoping that Crowder was healthy. So I can pick someone else up. I don't really know exactly who else is available without looking, but yeah. So I'm sitting on Cooper, Crowder, and Myers. And then if I wanted to start a third running back, it would have to be Latavius Murray this week.
So I would definitely roll with Crowder. The only problem with him is that there's an injury risk with him, and he's playing on Monday night. But if you have Myers, and I mean, you could even try and handcuff him with Braxton Berrios too for and lock in some of that slot volume there for the Jets, because you'll know in a PPR league, Berrios will get you. If Crowder's out, Berrios is a pretty solid play there. But
Sure.
yeah, I would roll with one of those guys over Cooper's floor is just non-existent this week. I mean, I don't see how the Cowboys even hang around this week. And yeah, that under 13.5, that seems pretty solid. And that's a extremely low total for an NFL team. That's crazy.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought they might have had like a 9.5 point total or something. I thought it was gonna be damn near single digits, and I looked and I was like, they're giving me 13.5. I'll take the under on that all day long. The other thing, final thought here about Amari Cooper is that he's only got 2 touchdowns on the whole season, so he has been very reception dependent, especially in obviously PPR leagues. In order to get his numbers to be at least halfway decent, he's had to catch the ball a good amount of times, excluding last week where he had 1 catch against Philadelphia. In the 4 weeks before that, he had 12 catches, 7 catches, and 7 catches as well, and then had another down week against the Giants. I just don't see the quarterback, whoever's starting, going to be able to. Maybe you get 1 decent long completion, 1 big play out of him, but you really think that he's going to be able to complete the ball 6 to 8 times to Amari Cooper against Pittsburgh with that defense as a whole, but that pass rush? I don't see it at all. He's only found the end zone twice all season, so I doubt he gets in the end zone again. And he is averaging too over the last 2 weeks, excluding Philadelphia. He's averaging over 10 yards a catch. So again, this isn't a guy that you can just dump the ball off to and he makes it happen. They throw it downfield, and they're not going to be able to throw it downfield this week. So I am avoiding Amari Cooper. And again, as Coach mentioned, probably just avoiding the Dallas pass catchers as a whole. Any final thoughts on Dallas? Or otherwise, I think we covered it pretty well, and we'll wrap up here with Devontae Parker.
I'm good. Stay away.
Stay away.
I'm taking your guys' word.
Simple as that. All right. Devontae Parker. This one I don't feel quite as confidently about. Parker's another guy to me too where he's been tough to read. Some ups and downs. He had about 4 weeks in a row where he was pretty consistent, but ever since week 5 really hasn't done all too much. Now he's got Tua in there. Of course, Tua I wouldn't say he struggled. I would just say he didn't really do too much last week. Obviously, some special teams and some defensive plays allowed the Dolphins to get up in that game, so Tua really didn't have to do too much. So I think this is going to be the first week where we really see, is Tua going to have a coming out party or not? What is his rapport with Devontae Parker? He did manage to find the end zone last week, so that was his one redeeming quality. He had one reception for 3 yards, but he did get in the end zone. So that gave him 7.3 points. Without getting in the end zone, he would have had 1.3 points, which is, that's kind of ugly. But they're playing Arizona. Should be a good game overall. I'm having a tough time, though, with confidently benching Devontae Parker. Coach, talk me into it. What do you see this week outside of just Tua being a new quarterback and all that? But what makes you low, or what makes your confidence low in Devontae Parker this week?
Yeah, well, and this week, first off, last week I had Parker as a sit, and so I think he scored that touchdown pretty early in the game. So it's always one of those things when I write up the article, I'm always, hoping that my predictions are all, spot on,
Yeah.
and so I saw him score right away, and then proceeded to look afterwards, and that was his only catch all day.
Yeah.
So I felt pretty good with that. But so this week now you got going into Arizona, you got a first road start. You've got and whether or not that's as big of a factor in this year of 2020, and I'm not sure if Arizona even allows fans in or what the status is there. But first road start, you got Patrick Peterson's going to be lined up on Devontae Parker. And Patrick Peterson's not the corner that he used to be as far as a shutdown corner, but
Still pretty good.
yeah. And as far as like the Christian McCaffrey take about kind of wanting to see it a little bit before you believe it, and Antonio Brown, I guess, is a better example of kind of wanting to see a little bit before you believe it. It's kind of like that with Parker. I kind of want to see him and Tua on the same page, kind of see them. I think he only had 3 targets last week. Now, granted, he was coming off a groin injury, but I think, except for in Henry's league there where he's got choices of Cooper and Crowder, although I do like Crowder for the season. But, in the deepest of leagues, you might have to start him, and it might just be something where you have to grin and bear it. But I think I would prefer to not start him this week if you have anything close for options.
Yeah, I tend to agree here. I didn't see anything out of the Dolphins offense really last week that would make me believe that Tua is guaranteed to be a success here going forward. Now, granted, the Rams defense is not terrible. The Dolphins offensive line is also not great. Cardinals defense flying under the radar here. The numbers actually very comparable to those of the Rams in terms of adjusted efficiency. Football Outsiders currently in the DVOA. The Rams are the 9th overall defense. Arizona is 10th. Rams are 9th against the pass. Cardinals are 11th. Rams are 15th against the run. Cardinals are 16th. You could argue that these teams, the defense that Tua Tagovailoa is going to see here in week 2 as a starter is very comparable to the one he saw in week 1. Obviously, different playmakers and such at all 3 levels. But in terms of numbers, the Cardinals are not bad. They're middle of the road in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers anyway. And, I'm inclined to roll with Coach here. I don't know that we can trust Devontae Parker this week. So, again, if you're in a deep league, it might be all you have. But in terms of other leagues, I think, quite frankly, Mike Gesicki would be the preferred pass catcher for me. Now, I don't know how the Cardinals stack up in terms of fantasy points allowed to tight ends. I can take a look at that. They're middle of the road again there. So I just feel like the bigger target is going to be where Tua looks. And also, I would wonder about Preston Williams a little bit, too, working the inside. If he would garner some more looks, just running routes closer to the line of scrimmage and over the middle of the field. Also, something to keep an eye on here with Miami in this game. We don't know if Matt Breida is going to be able to play. Didn't practice again today, as far as I know. Of course, Myles Gaskin is out. And so then the backfield becomes kind of, what's going to happen there as well. Now, Jordan Howard, you would think, would be the lead rusher. But what are we going to see in terms of pass catchers? Because that's definitely not Howard. And so, I might even wonder if a guy like Patrick Lyard might resurface here this week with a little bit of PPR value. This Tua needs a guy to check it down to. Lynn Bowden, I don't know how Miami might involve him there too. So a lot of question marks around this Dolphins offense right now. And if Breida's out, I think Howard is a guy that you can put in, depending on your situation, pretty comfortably. But otherwise, I'm inclined to stay away here for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And Breida did not practice today.
Okay, yeah. That's what I had seen too. So,
yeah.
By the way, the Cardinals, 4,000 fans is what they're letting in. So I don't know if they'll be able to throw the rookie off his game, but there will be a few fans.
Well, it won't be quite like going into LSU when he was at Bama, though.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I don't think Tua and a large crowd and big pressure situation, I don't think that's really going to bother him too much after the college career that he had. But again, I do only have Parker in a pretty deep league, so that's why it's been more of a struggle for me. If you have any other options, I probably would go with them as well. And I do like Mike Gesicki quite a bit this week. We've said it a million times before. Young quarterbacks, like their big tight ends, it's a shorter pass, it's a bigger target, usually in the middle of the field. So I like Mike Gesicki this weekend as well. But overall, the Dolphins defense is going to need to be good, and they're going to need to be at the top of their game if they want a realistic shot against the Cardinals this weekend, because I said it after week 2, and Zach, laughed at me, fought with me, and I still don't think he agrees with me, but the Cardinals are good. They're a good football team. And Miami obviously is a good football team too with a good coach. I just don't think they're quite as good, and might be a big learning curve for the offense and for Tua starting this week. So there you have it. All of your start sits for the week. Of course, if you want to review anything we talked about or read in depth what Coach has written out, head on over to flurrysports.org. I'm going to wrap this up here quickly so we can get on to the Packer game. Packers are winning 7-0 already, and if you checked out my article, I published an article to flurrysports.org earlier that said how to go about it was titled How to Go About Betting This Wacky Thursday Night Football Game. And in there, I laid out a bunch of different bets, all for free. But one of my best bets was Davante Adams' first touchdown score. Seemed pretty obvious tonight, as this was his 3rd week in a row now that he was the first touchdown scorer of the game. Still getting plus 550, which I don't know if the books just haven't caught up or those lines don't move all that often. But it is now 3 weeks in a row that Davante Adams has hit the first TD score, and you're still getting plus 550 tonight. So congratulations to all of you who followed me there, and spend that money wisely. I mean, a $10 bet, you just made 55 easy bucks, and if you put anything more down, you probably can afford a nice dinner. Maybe go out tomorrow night, have a little nice weekend out or something like that. But Davante Adams, thank you very much. 3 weeks in a row, we've hit the first touchdown score. That was part of my picks over on Pick City. You can buy them at pickcity.com, or just read the articles. When there's free pick articles, read them. You would have gotten it for free earlier today as well. So that's it. Make sure you check out monkeyknifefight.com, promo code Flurry for a free $5, 100% deposit match up to $50. Still not too late to get into the action tonight, as Monkey Knife Fight has second half contests that you can jump into. So go sign up, use the promo code Flurry, and try and make some money with some contests over there. I believe that is all I've got for you tonight. Sorry for Coach, you were the only one that was bouncing around, getting bigger, smaller here tonight. I was trying to keep up with it as best as I could. But thank you to those of you who watched us here live tonight. Thank you to those of you who catch the replay. We'll be back possibly tomorrow night. If not, on Saturday, Henry and I are going to do a deep dive here into betting, because we haven't done the proper betting stream the last 2 weeks, and I was supposed to do play-by-play both Friday and Saturday this week, and for the 3rd series in a row, it has been postponed because of COVID. So I did my first play-by-play game back on October like 16th or something. I haven't done another one since because so many delays from COVID. So I got all the time in the world on Saturday. Come join us, me and Henry and maybe Zach. I don't know if he'll join us or not, and we'll run through the entire slate. Until then, thank you very much. Follow us all on our Twitters found below. Follow Flurry Sports. Follow Zach at Fantasy Flurry, and enjoy your Thursday night football game, guys. Thanks for joining me tonight. Have a good one.
Take care.
Woo!